Welcome to the Pharsyde channel. This is our series on business owner challenges. Today, I am the person in the hot seat and I am being interviewed by my amazing partner, Izelle Badenhorst. Izelle, thank you for joining me and for interviewing me today.
You're welcome. It's nice to be on the other side of the seat.
Yeah, I'm not so sure. I'm not going to say the same. And I am completely unprepared, let me tell you. I have interviewed 1,000 people, so you would think that I would be ready with my own answers, but I'm not. Let's see how this goes.
Yeah, it's a good taste then. Okay, so if we start, if you had to describe to someone what Pharsyde Solution, what we do, and what kind of problems we solve for people, how would you describe that?
Well, I think the first thing that comes to mind when I think of Pharsyde and why we actually decided to change the name to Solutions for the group is that we give people peace of mind. So people who are worried about, their business, their admin, they feel overwhelmed. They know that things aren't quite where they should be, but they don't know how to fix it, or they just don't have the time to sit and keep their finances in order and to stay on top of everything they need to as a business owner. We step in and we do that for them, and we give them the tools that they need to do more. So I think that's the first thing that comes to mind when I think of what we do is we help people ease the overwhelm and then sleep properly at night again, knowing that everything is under control.
Yeah, because like we saw from our meetings this week, a lot of people, the compliance is a big deal, and not everybody know. Well, not it can't be expected that everybody knows all the laws out there, and they keep on changing.
Yeah,
So I'm glad we can give them peace of mind like that.
yeah.
Um, and then I know the answer to this question, but you'll have to tell everybody now your biggest personal challenge while you build your business, because it's been how many years now since you started?
It is 16 years now in 2023.
Yes.
This is our
Yeah.
16th year. Um, I actually meant to I think in the 13th year I was like, oh, we're nearing 15, we must do like a celebration. And then when the 15th year happened, I completely forgot. So that's how fast 2022 went past. But yeah, it's 16 years now. And my biggest challenge is actually, I know you probably think I'm going to say the burnout, which it is. That
That's
was
what I
most
thought. Yeah.
definitely the biggest challenge I had to overcome. But to be honest, there were so many. they were, they were all, I think all of them led to that burnout. Is that, the thing is, when I opened a business, I did what I think all business owners do, is that I thought I'm good at this thing, so I'll be good at running a business in that industry.
Doing.
I'm good in
Mm.
accounting, I can run an accounting company. And it's not the same thing, and to try and balance being good at accounting, so actually providing good accounting services to people who are now my clients, not my employer, as well as building the business itself, getting in new clients and keeping things running and making sure that I'm compliant as a business owner. They were all big challenges, really. And the marketing, especially, I am not comfortable with marketing and sales. I don't know many accountants who are. So that's
Mm.
something I kind of just had to become comfortable with, whether I liked it or not. But yeah, they all led to me overworking and getting overwhelmed and just keep on pushing instead of taking care of myself. So burnt out quite badly. And although it was a big challenge to get through the burnout, it's also, I still say, the best thing because it made me
You learn a
question.
lot.
It
Yeah.
made me question. It made me step back. It made me stop and say, okay, I'm doing things wrong. So how do I do it right? What are other business owners doing? What am I getting wrong? What don't I know? So it was good from that perspective. Good for me to also realize that looking after myself is as important as building the business.
Mm.
And then, of course, now I've been able to develop that into its own coaching program so I can help other business owners who are going through the same thing. So, big challenge, but I'm kind of glad I went through it.
Mm. That's the best way to teach people. If you've been through something yourself, then you know what they actually feeling. And I think you'll agree that a lot of people shows the signs of burnout, but they don't know that this is the road they're going down, and they'll ignore it. Or that's what we all do. We ignore it as long as you can until you get to that point of no return.
Yeah, well, you see, the problem is because I always joke that because I went through burnout 3 times actually before the complete
Oh.
collapse. And I always joke it's because I'm a slow learner. People always laugh, but it's not really. It's because I didn't recognize it. I thought it was normal to be overworked as a business owner. I thought that's just part of building a business. You're going to be busy, and it is to some degree especially when you begin. When you start to build a business, it does take very long hours and it does eat up your life, because it's an entire entity that you're creating, and it takes time, it takes dedication. I wasn't aware of the fact though that there should be a point in time where it stops to eat up your life and it starts to become a business, so I just kept pushing, and I thought these symptoms that I was feeling, this stress and overwhelm and tiredness, I just thought it was normal, and I thought if I just have a weekend here and there, I'll be fine. But when it comes to burnout, having a little bit of off time is not enough. So
that's on a personal front. And then on a business challenge front, if you had to describe one that you faced and overcame successfully and one that you're facing now, what would you say?
okay. So I can give you 2 challenges that I feel were very big, and I'm grateful that we overcame them. The first, well, is me, because part of you bringing, I mean, me bringing you on was part of overcoming the challenge. But the first challenge was finding the right team. I did really badly in the beginning with my hiring, and not necessarily because I hired the wrong people. It was the way I did it. I didn't train properly. I had the wrong expectations of people. I figured accounting is a protocol driven industry. You have to you have to do things a certain way. There are rules, there are regulations, you have to be accurate. So I kind of made the assumption that because of that, if I bring on another bookkeeper, their work will be identical to my work, which is a ridiculous assumption, because although there's protocols, we're unique people. So the way we approach those protocols, the way we implement them, and then the way that we communicate with clients and with each other, all of those things are different. So I'd hire these bookkeepers thinking, well, here you go, here's your pile of paperwork, and then get really upset because their output didn't match mine, and what was wrong with them. And it's totally unfair. And I had to learn to create my systems and processes of how I want things done. When do I want specific memos? When do I want paperwork, specific paperwork to back something up? Or how do I want the paperwork stored so that we can all find it? These are all things that I actually had to logically lay out, and I didn't quite call it that at the time, but I created a policies and procedures manual for the business, and that made hiring much easier. It made training much easier, and eventually it led to me bringing on you and all the ladies that we currently have, and now I have this amazing team that I'm really happy with. But it was a big challenge in the beginning. And then
time as well, investing
time.
time, right?
Well,
That is a big job.
the thing is, I think a lot of business owners, when I do speak to them about policies and procedures, the first thing that they push back on is, I don't have time to create them, which they don't. I understand that. I was in the same boat. But if I look at myself, I had spent way more time fixing other people's work, and other people's mistakes, or redoing work, or now having to look after a client who's unhappy because of things not being done the way that Pharsyde does them. That took way more of my time than it actually took me to create the manual. So at the end of the day, if I look at those 2 things, yes, you don't have the time to sit and do your policies and procedures, but I can promise you, you don't have the time not to. It will definitely have a better effect down the line, on your life and on your business, than you going on, I don't have time, I'll just muddle along. That doesn't go well. But the second challenge, as I say, and we solved this one together, was the cash flow. It can be quite a thing for small businesses and accountants included to manage cash flow. And I actually think a lot of accountants battle with this. If you're an accountant watching, I'm very sure you battle with your receivables. And it's there's two things involved there. And I think the first is that we're not people, we're number people. We like the numbers, we like the work, we love the work. But it's already hard enough for us to get in new clients because it's taxing on a number loving introvert to go out there and find more clients. It's even more stressful to now get hold of that client and say, hi, you didn't pay me. Can I please have my money? Is really stressful. So, and I was quite fortunate. For many years, I didn't really have that problem. I just luckily had great clients who paid on time. But 2020 had a pretty nasty effect on South African economy, and it wasn't that people didn't want to pay us. It was in a lot of cases they couldn't pay us. So, and you and I have worked over the years to put things into place where we can alleviate that panic for us, in terms of, are we actually going to get this money in? And we've been able to fix our cash flow issues for Pharsyde, and hopefully we can now use that knowledge to help our clients fix their cash flow issues as well. So that's a great challenge.
It's probably one of the biggest risks, I think, over the next few years for all business owners, with us going into recession and everybody struggling. So
yeah, I think cash flow has always been the biggest reason that businesses fail. When they look at small business failures in particular, I think it's 82% fail because they didn't manage their cash flow. So it's always been a problem. But yes, in going into the recession, it's going to become more and more of a problem. And it's a big challenge for especially a small business. You don't sit with the capital and the resources that a big business is sitting with. And if someone doesn't pay you on time, it can really, really hurt your bottom line and your ability to keep going. So, but yeah. And then in terms of a challenge we're still facing, for me, I think it will always be marketing. It's always
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, I just
completely understand.
Yeah, I'm an introvert, and I think the concept of putting myself out there is it's not one I'm comfortable with. So, and I've had to learn to be comfortable with it. As I was saying, ironically, going online has helped me sort of with this whole concept of putting myself out there. And I think I say ironically because I'm scared of talking to people face to face, but like putting videos of my face on YouTube just doesn't seem as scary, which it should be, because now I've got opening myself up to criticism from the entire world. And some of those videos are awful. I mean, some of those videos are literally, I look at them now and I question whether I should just delete them, because the content is useful. Like I'm giving really cool business tips to small business owners, and I know it's good content, but I'm like looking at the way my hair's like moving weirdly on the fake background, and the lighting's wrong, and everything's just wrong, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, that is the worst video I've ever seen. And yet, here we are. I'm still on YouTube while I'm still scared to speak to people in person. It's very strange, but yeah, marketing.
Well, I admire you for doing that.
Marketing will always be a challenge. I think it's just one of those things. And I don't, actually, I say I'm an introvert, but actually, I don't think anyone is really comfortable with the concept of putting themselves out there, whether they're introverts or extroverts, which they like people or they like the spotlight or they don't. Having to go, look at me, I'm amazing, use my services, is not something people are comfortable with. You want other people to tell people how wonderful you are. You don't want to be the one saying, I'm a great accountant. You should give your work to me. There's hundreds and thousands of them out there, but me, I'm the one.
I think that's something that came out yesterday as well, when I joined the builder with Melody yesterday, and they're not all accountants, and she was saying as well, it's very hard, the same thing, like putting yourself out there. So I do think you're right. It's a general thing. But I think you've been doing a fantastic job, as we can see in our client numbers growing. So thank you. And then if you think back over your 16 years in Pharsyde, what was that? You probably have a few of these, but your biggest sort of aha moment where your mind shift changed about something you thought about, and then you realized, well, if I do it this way, it'll be much better.
Sure, yeah. 16 years. Well,
Difficult question.
it is, except I'm just going to revert back to what I teach because that's easy. It's forefront of my mind because as part of the burnout coaching, I always share that I had to go through three big shifts in mindset when I started rebuilding Farsight after the burnout. So I've got three that I can share off the top of my head. And the first one was that working hard gets you nowhere if you work the wrong way. It's that recognition of having to have those systems and procedures, those policies, those step-by-step way of doing something, and not just to delegate, but also for me, because if I haven't worked out the most efficient way to do something, I'm going to constantly be scrabbling. Every time I start a job, every time I take on a new client, I've got to kind of start from scratch again in terms of how I approach that work. So when I streamlined the process and I was like, okay, this is how we onboard a client, and this is what I send them, and this is what I ask for, and this is how they send it to me, and this is where I start, it's streamlining those things and going step one, step two, step three. That changed the way I worked, which made everything a lot easier to deal with. And also prioritizing things, also comes into the way you work, and understanding that as a business owner, there are things that have to be done, and there are things that you want to do, and then there are things that kind of fall into both, where you want to and they have to, and you've got to try and balance those three things across your week, and it's very difficult to learn how to prioritize, to learn to say no to things. So yeah, definitely the way you work is far more important than how much you work, because I was just of this opinion that I'd put my head down and I'd work hard. I wasn't scared of hard work. I mean, I was quite happy. I was young too when I started, so it was easy. It's not so easy now, but it was easy in my 20s to just work through the night.
Yeah.
Catch 2 hours of sleep, feel a little bit sleepy during the day, and carry on, and I was fine. I mean, now if I try to do that
plus
now
Barocca.
in my 40s, I think I'll just fall over and die, So you have to change the way you do things. And that was the first one. And then the second one was this: don't do it alone, because like I said earlier, I made these mistakes with hiring. I'd bring these people in, I didn't train them properly, I didn't give them protocols or procedures, and then I'd get frustrated, and then I'd have to redo their work. And after that happened a couple of times, I made it's an age-old saying, if you want something done right, do it yourself. I slid into that and then stopped bringing on help. I just did everything, and that's really not the way to go. That's a surefire recipe for absolute disaster, because you're not a business is an entity made up of multiple departments, multiple roles, multiple jobs, and you cannot do it as one person. If you really want to build a business, you have to build a team. So that was my second one: is you can't do it yourself. But I think the mindset that had the biggest impact on where Pharsyde is was when I recognized that if I wanted my business to grow, I had to grow, because I was the company's biggest asset, at least at that point in time. Now we have a team. Now I have lots of assets that are contributing to the business. But this was my dream, my energy, my passion, my work. And when I burnt out, guess what happened? It all came down with me, because it was all me. So if you don't look after yourself as a business owner, you're endangering your business. You're not just endangering you. And it's a big realization for a lot of people, especially people who are burning out and they feel guilty spending
Mm,
time looking after themselves, and they've already got this huge workload. You've already got this long list of things that you need to be doing for clients, paying clients, and you're behind on those things. Then the thought of taking time off and doing something for you feels selfish and wrong. And you think you
mm,
can't afford this weekend off. I can't afford to, I don't know, go for a walk outside, this morning because
mm,
I have to do these things. But the reality is that you can't afford not to look after
to do
yourself.
that. Yeah.
Because if you just keep pushing like that, then you're going to collapse and then everybody is let down. All of those
Mm,
clients, now you're going with clients with late work, then they're going to have no work. And that's far
mm,
worse. So that
mm,
was a big realization. And then not just a part of self-care, it also led, I think, because I started taking time for myself. And so I started to breathe again. And then I started to realize how good it is for your brain to take the time
to
off in
breathe.
terms of, yeah,
Yeah.
and in terms of reigniting my energy, my passion, my
Mm,
creativity. I suddenly could come up with answers to the problems that I had. Whereas
mm,
for months I'd just been facing these things and pushing through and pushing through and pushing through and getting nowhere. And then I take a bit
mm,
of time off and I'm like, oh, I can try this. And your brain
mm,
it just works better when it's not under pressure.
mm,
So there's that big benefit. And then I also started to think, well, surely I can improve myself as well. I spent time learning and growing, and that's when I joined a really amazing mentoring group for accountants. Actually, I joined two mentoring groups for accountants, and I could learn from other accounting firm owners, and I mean big firms. I didn't whenever people spoke about turnover in the group, I just had coffee to drink. I wasn't going to mention what my turnover is in comparison
so,
to these people I was with because I mean you talk about like a minnow. I was a minnow with sharks, not a minnow with trout. So
mm,
the size difference was phenomenal. But the result was that I could learn. I could learn from people who were so much more successful than me, and although they were so much more successful, they were still seeking coaching. They were still seeking
mm,
mentoring. And it showed me no matter where you are in your business journey, you can keep learning. You can keep improving yourself. And that continuous learning is vital for you as a human being. And it's vital for your
mm,
business because the world keeps changing. I mean, the
mm,
world literally just keeps changing. So even in industry, I mean, an industry like ours, accounting has been around, I think, officially in its current form since the 1400s or something ridiculous. It is an
wow.
ancient industry. And we've been doing it the same way for hundreds of years. And then all of a sudden, 10 years ago, technology changed it. It just
Mm.
changed it completely. So we were doing it the same way for hundreds of years, and then not. And it's
And there's a
it's
lot of people that don't like change or don't like, most people don't like change.
most
So
people
it
don't.
is, yeah.
So yeah, you've got to keep growing. You've got to keep learning
Mm,
because whether you like the change or not, what I think it was Mark Twain who said the only thing certain in life is death and taxes.
yeah, that is true.
And then the fact
Um,
that they tax you after death, that's also certain.
oh, Daniel, let's not talk about tax. um, you were saying something now that really resonated with me about change. Oh no, I was thinking about the whole process you change around the bringing in the new clients with a DocuSign, and now that all flows through nicely now. That is so impressive. 'Cause then it just slots, put the documents in the right places and share the right folders. That's very impressive.
Yeah, it's a great, and I mean, DocuSign is just one of many,
Yeah.
options out there. But it's definitely it's one of those tools that has made life so much easier in terms of getting retainers signed and agreed, and everybody
Mm,
has a copy, and everybody knows what's going on. And like you say, you can
mm,
store it easily, and it's just, it's just streamlines the process. And I think it's part of creating your systems and your protocols when you've written them down. So, you know, I mean, I started with the protocol of create a retainer document, send it to the client, get the signatures back, print it out, sign it, scan it back in, send it back to the client. You know, that was my original procedure.
Yeah.
And I needed that at the time. That's what I needed. And those were my steps. But because I had those steps clearly defined, it was so much easier to recognize that DocuSign could simplify it. You know, so as it's also part of being a business owner is that of getting those processes in place is it's not just to hand over, it's not just to streamline your current situation. It also helps you to look for other ways of doing things. It helps you to go, is the way I'm doing this actually efficient? Can I improve it? And even now, I'm very sure there's ways we could improve it. The system that we've got going, you know, it's great, but I think there'll always be some new tool coming on. I mean, with AI now, it's getting quite scary. There'll
Yeah.
always be something, you know, maybe we can get ChatGPT to just do the whole thing for us. Who knows?
Yeah, it's quite scary if you talk about AI, but I'm kind of not nervous about it because I don't care how far AI is going to go in accountancy. We will always be needed to give an opinion on the numbers, and no robot's going to be able to tell you that. So I think
I
we're
think
safe there.
I think I mean, I was quite surprised the developments and the current developments in AI, they took me by surprise because they went for the creative industries. And I honestly always believed that they would be the last to fall to
Yeah.
robotics. So it was really interesting to see that and scary to see that development. But even looking at those, and yes, it's amazing. It's someone like me who can't draw stick figures can now generate images, you know, in some of these programs, and well, all sorts of things. So you can create music, you can do copywriting, you can do all sorts of things. It's amazing. It's terrifying because there's people out there who've made their living off these things that are now going to be done by robots.
Yeah.
But I personally think you know, these things come in roundabouts, and right now they're phenomenal and everyone's excited. But I think everything always comes back to people in the end. I think there's always a revolution back to the fact that, I mean, even in if you look at the Industrial Revolution, which put a huge amount of people out of work, uh, if you look at that compared to the modern day, you've still got people in factories. You've still got people in industrial businesses. We need each other, and it's not always for the work itself. Because yes, maybe a robot can do our job. Maybe I don't think it would take that much, to be honest, for a robot to give you a full review of your business and you know, analyze cash flow and make suggestions on how to improve it. But at the end of the day, do you really want that to come from Siri? Or do you want a human being who understands your fear, understands your panic, has been where you are, to sit next to you and go, listen, I know it's terrifying. It's okay. You know, you can get
And
through this.
answer random questions that you throw that, you know, or any kind of question in our area.
And we need the connection. We need funny enough, there's a accountant called Will Farnell. So he is the owner of, well, part, I don't know if he's the sole or part owner of Farnell Clark in the UK. And he was one of the first accountants. Farnell Clark was one of the very, very, very first accounting firms to go online. They embraced digital long before everybody else. And they made a huge success of it. And as a result, he wrote a book called The Digital Firm. And he taught, you know, in the book, he lays out for accountants how to become a digital firm, how to go online, which was also a hugely successful book. It's a wonderful book. If you are an accountant who's not online yet, highly recommend it. But he's just written a new book. It's called The Human Firm. Because after all of his years of being online,
digital.
And they haven't gone offline. I mean, the tools that are online, you're not going to let go of. That does make life easier for all of us. So they're 100% online. I mean, they even offer an advisory service where they help you choose your online apps, you know, for your business. and
Oh,
develop your
well.
entire online ecosystem. He's not letting go of the online and the robots and the AI and all of that. He's embracing it still, but he's also seen in the development of his business how the human touch is really what set them apart. It's really what
Mm,
kept them in business, was that their clients liked them and liked dealing with them.
mm,
So yeah, and so there's two different sides from one person, and they're both valid. They're both extremely
mm,
valid. But
no,
I don't think the human connection, the need for human connection, will ever fall away.
no, I agree with you. And then there's just your last question. If you had to look at your younger self and you had to give yourself advice on something you wish you knew back then, what would it be?
So much.
I don't even know what I would.
I was so stupid when I opened my business. No, there's so much that I could have told my younger self, but I think the most important thing would have been to not undervalue myself. Because I think that was probably the biggest business mistake that I made in terms of positioning myself. I did not have the confidence. I mean, I actually was still only a bookkeeper on paper when I opened the company. So Pharsyde started as a bookkeeping company. You know, we couldn't call ourselves an accounting firm. Um, and I had to outsource anything beyond senior bookkeeping. And as a result, I didn't have the confidence to charge what I was worth, even for bookkeeping. I think we had a discussion the other day under the Pharsyde staff interviews, and I mentioned that, you know, we tend to, the accounting industry in general tends to undervalue bookkeeping. We see it as a bottom
Mm,
level job, but it's the most important one because it literally supports all the others. If your bookkeeping is wrong, then everything is wrong, and the information
mm,
you're working with is false, and you're going to make bad decisions. And you know, so I undervalued what I was giving to people. And I was a really good bookkeeper, and I gave. I was one of those bookkeepers who, if something was out by 10 cents, I found it. I found it. I didn't just write it off to bank charges. I found it. I was a good bookkeeper, and yet I undervalued it so much because I was like, oh, I'm only a bookkeeper, and I can't charge.
mm,
Oh gosh, it's only 6 hours of work, and yes, it's only 6 hours of work, but it took me 5 years to learn how to do the 6 hours of work. And of course, as we've progressed, I mean, now I'm sitting with over 20 years, and you as well, of knowledge, of experience on how to do this work. So yes, maybe now it probably only take me 3 hours to do that work,
mm.
but it takes me 3 hours because I spent 20 years learning it. And to
Yeah.
recognize that value, to recognize that this is easy for me because of my time, because of my experience, because of my knowledge. It's not easy for my client. And they came to me because it's not easy. And they need that
Mm,
expertise. They need it. I'm not charging for something they don't need. I'm not ripping
mm.
them off. I'm providing a needed service, and as such, I should get reimbursed for it. That is something I wish I'd recognized much sooner.
Do you think, I'm just going to throw this question out there, but do you think um, in South Africa we're still struggling with the whole men, women, equal pay kind of issue as well? Like I know in the UK, it's by much time I spent there. And it's a huge discussion I don't want to get into, but just talking about rates. Do you think we still have that issue here as well? And maybe that's why women maybe think that they shouldn't be charging, although value isn't as worth as
Um,
men.
I can't
Or
speak
have we come a far
for
way?
yeah, I can't speak for other women. I must be honest, I never had much trouble by way of being female in the industry.
Mm.
I think in 15 years, 16 years, I've had one person um sort of be derogatory because of my gender.
Oh, that's
Um,
fantastic.
yeah, so and surprisingly as well, I mean, because I hear terrible stories from other women, but I've had some of the best support from the male members of our industry, have been the most encouraging and the most supportive in terms of backing up my work and telling others that I knew what I was doing. I had to get reference letters to join cyber, for example, and site for my designations. And it was my male colleagues that gave me the most glowing recommendations in terms of their experience of working with me, backing me up, So I think I think it depends very much on where you are and your
Yeah, and the
own
person. Yeah.
and your own I don't know. I've never been someone who cares very much if someone else thinks I can't do something. My problem has always been in my head. If I feel
Mm.
that I'm not doing a good job or that I could do better or that, something is then I'll be very insecure. But if I'm confident in what I'm doing and someone else, and it doesn't matter what gender they are, if someone else tells me that, it's not something I can do, I'll be like, oh really? Let's see. Um, so
Let me
and
prove you wrong.
yeah, so I think maybe that's why I haven't experienced it so much. Also, I also am a big believer in if someone doesn't see your worth, move on.
Yeah.
I'm like if you that one particular gentleman who was derogatory because of my gender, well, he wasn't an ideal client, was he? I mean, I'm not going
Mm,
to want to work with someone like that. I don't care what he's willing to pay. Um,
mm,
it's not enough for me. So I just,
mm,
I'll move on quite quickly if I don't feel that there's any form of mutual respect. And again, that's happened across genders. I've had
that's true,
women be
yeah.
very derogatory, about my lack of qualification or my age. I think that was actually my biggest stumbling block building my business was my
Oh,
age, not my gender. I was 25. It's very hard to get people to take a 25-year-old seriously. Um,
yeah,
so yeah,
it's another
think
challenge right there
I
that
think yeah, I
you've
think
been through, yeah.
any woman battling with, feeling that they are being looked down on for their gender, my biggest advice to them is move on because that's
Mm,
not the space for you. It's just not the space for
mm,
you. If the people you are with cannot see beyond, your physical shape, um, you shouldn't be there.
they
You just
lost,
shouldn't be there.
yeah. Mm.
Go open your own.
And come to Pharsyde Builder and hear about everything you need to be able to open it successfully.
Yeah, and hire women and
Yeah.
after them.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Izelle. It was fun.